Hey, Randy here. Thank you for clicking into the sermon for this week. I hope we can be a benefit or a blessing to you as you watch and listen. And our prayer is that Jesus would become more real to you than ever before. God bless you. There are 73 Psalms that were written by David. It's interesting. Psalms, they're probably more of a prayer book than they are a song book. You think of it as songs, and obviously so many of them are very singable. But it's really a collection of songs, but it's also a collection of poetry. It's a collection of lyrics, and at times almost from the writer's journal. And so it's not all David. So we sometimes think that the Psalms were just written by David, and that's not so. There's several writers. And in Psalm 25, and if you have your tablet or your analog paper, pull that out. Psalm 25 is going to be our text. Are you even kidding me? Do we have any more mics that we can keep trying? And okay, let's just keep on doing that. Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. It's Psalm 25 where you really see a failed dad. You see a guy who has really made a mess in some ways with his family. Have you ever looked at somebody and you thought from a distance, you thought to yourself that they're a perfect parent? And not perfect as in never make a mistake, but an ideal parent. And then you find out other things later and you go, really? That's how I view David. We did a series, I think it was last summer, on David, on the life of David. And you see these aspects of his life that are really eye-opening to me. And Psalm 25 was written by David after some really painful events. He lost the kingdom. He lost his relationship with Absalom. It was Absalom that took over the kingdom. And it was David that failed to get involved in sibling matters that he should have clearly and could have gotten involved. And because of whatever reason, whether it's fear or whatever, chose not to. And so we stumble on Psalm 25, and we begin seeing aspects of the chapter that could be applied to you and me, and whether you're a parent or not. I think of parents, I think of grandparents, but I think of anybody that has any kind of influence over another person that is more deeper or more significant than just talking about the weather. It could be people in your lives that you have some influence, and you have this and also a deep desire to see things happen in their lives that are good. And sometimes critical conversations are necessary, and so we're going to kind of take a peek at this. And the first one I want you to catch, in verse 1, it says this, chapter 25, "To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul." And the first thing I want you to know is that as a parent or as an influencer, to whomever we're influencing, that it's necessary and important to coach them to be in touch with their souls or with their hearts. You have this word, "To you I lift up my soul." And the soul is, it's that part of that person, it's where desire and passion and appetite and emotion live. And what David is saying is, I lift up from the deepest part of who I am, where where things live that I may not even understand, to you, O Lord, I lift these up to you. Have you ever been in a situation where you found yourself anxious and you didn't know why you were anxious? Anyone else except me? Okay, there's about 10 dysfunctional ones in here like me. Thank you. Welcome to my world. You hear people that have been guilty of not guilty. You have people who suffer from anxiety and have had panic attacks. We recently had dinner with someone, and it was a panic attack that they had here during my sermon, and I went, wait a minute. What are you trying to say? And his wife said, well, it did happen during your sermon. And I actually watched him walk out, and then we ended up going down to the hospital and visit him. And so we haven't seen him. That happened on Mother's Day, and so I haven't seen him since. And we said, what was that from? He says, the doctor said it was from anxiety. And says, were you feeling things at the time? He goes, not things that I was aware of. And I thought of this verse, that the times in my life where something's not right, my heart is anxious. There's something that's bothering me. There's something that's not completely computing. There's feelings that are almost inappropriate to the situation, where my fear or my anxiety or my anger reach a level that don't match the situation. And if you take a step back and look at that and you think, that doesn't fit. And what I find is that if I don't find intentional time and spend intentional effort on what's happening in my heart, that they come out sideways. And I begin feeling, we call them urges, we feel it, we talk about appetite, we talk about things in our life. You ever catch someone, whether it's adult or a teenagers mostly, but even adults, and they get caught doing something, and you ask them, why did you do that? What was going on in your mind? And the answer 9 out of 10 times is what? I don't know. Are they lying? No, they're not lying. Some of the most honest people in my life say, I really don't know. And so we'll go to a Christian counselor, or we'll go to a pastor, or we'll go to a friend, or they're just really eager to find out. So they start reading and they start journaling. And I think of Matthew 22, where it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And I can't do that unless I'm aware of what's going on in my heart. And when David's first words are, to you, Lord, I lift up my soul, he's saying something very dangerous. The things that are occurring in my heart that I even feel anxiety about, the things that I don't understand about my soul, the things that I don't understand about why I do what I do. You find a guy who's committed to spending every nickel they have and every nickel that they don't have gambling. And they find themselves in this hole of debt. And they get confronted, and their wife finds out, and it's wives and women. I mean, it's women too, but I'm just kind of picking on guys. And you finally sit down and you go, why? You knew the numbers were against you. And there was something happening in their heart that they were completely unaware of, and that came out completely and entirely sideways, and they happened to bring their entire family down with them. I could actually preach this entire 30 minutes on this point. Because your kiddo, by design, because of maturity or lack of, or because of feeling things for the first time in their lives that that are completely new to them. Going from being a child where you thinking concrete to being an adult, which you begin thinking abstract, that distance between thinking concrete as a child and thinking abstract as adult is a horrible time. It's called adolescence. Some call it hell. So you've got this child who just thinks and he doesn't understand abstract humor. Disney, perfect example. Disney knows this. When you go to a Disney film, a Pixar film, and you sit down and you ask, how is the movie? And the kids only saw the concrete humor. But there's always a layer right underneath of it for the adults. And the adults go, yeah, I liked that. That was really good. And the kid goes, it was funny. And you go, yeah, it was really funny. There's some parts in there that, and so the parents get this level and then the kids get this level, same thing. The thing about adolescence, let me just kind of be a youth pastor again for a second. Sorry, AJ. One of the things that I loved about youth ministry is because teenagers go in and out and they don't even know when and how. The problem is when maturity doesn't catch up and you've got 35-year-olds still going in and out. He lives in your basement. So, but I think I'm guilty of it. I think there's times where I would rather not pray a prayer like David, where he says, to you, I lift up my soul. And everything in my heart, and all of the confusion, and all of the tension, and all of the anxiety. And I just know that it takes courage, it takes confidence, and oftentimes it takes a crossroads in my life to get there. If everything is going well, why would I reflect on things deep in my heart that much of it could bring even more pain temporarily before you get to the health? Why would I do something so crazy? Until a crossroads. How many people have you talked to that have gone through a divorce? And you've heard them through the divorce, and you knew them before, and then you knew them after, and you know the difference in their life and in their heart and their mind and their purpose and the way they parent and the way they interact. It's completely different, and the divorce just took their head and smashed it against the wall, and they started seeing things about themselves that divorce forced them to see. And I pick on divorce primarily because coming up, we offer momentum, or the group does, and we completely support them, Paul and that team. And how many times have we seen those going through divorce, or it's been years and they still haven't come to grips with things, and they go to the momentum, and they find some answers, but they're digging because they're looking and learning at a level that they've never had to look or learn. By the way, I've never said anything more true than that. Without intentionally looking and learning, we don't see or learn. And David says, to you, I lift up my soul. But for me, I'm too busy. And the things in my life are too important. I say that sarcastically, of course. Second verse. O my God, in you I trust. Let me not be put to shame. Let not my enemies exult over me. Number two, there's a shift from trust from you to God. I did a video this week on this from my desk. And I think it's important to understand as parents or as grandparents or anyone that we have influence over that when kids are kids, they look to you as the parent or to coaches or to teachers, and there is this admiration. There's this sense of awe. Now, that age has dropped You know, years ago it was much higher, and it's much lower today. And if you're an educator, you know that, and you could teach me a lesson on that, I'm certain. But there is a dependence that happens when they're kids, but that dependence goes away. And that dependence on you as a parent, whether you know it or are aware of it or not, it's going away. And when I read this text in chapter 25, verse 2, it says, "Oh my God, in you I trust. Let me not be put to shame. Let my enemies exult over me." What he is saying is, there are so many options in this world that I can put my trust. And when you're 18, 19, 20, you just assume that having that car or having that girlfriend or boyfriend or having that job or having that title, and all of those things are going to bring fulfillment and satisfaction. And so it shifts the dependency, emotional, spiritual, relational dependency, goes from parent to something or someone else. It will happen in some form or fashion. It will shift away. And if it's not intentionally, and if you're not guiding and directing them to shift to God, it will land somewhere. One of the most embarrassing stories I'll tell is right here, but we're all close friends. When I graduated from Bible college, I went back to our home church, which was a big, huge church. We didn't have mega churches back then, but it was a big church. And so that term didn't come around until probably the late 90s. And I became the junior high pastor. And with that, I had this office, and it was small. I mean, I could turn around like this. It was that small. And I had my name on the door, and they gave me keys that I could hang on my belt, because that was cool then, right next to my fanny pack. And so then I've got this office, and I've got my name on the bulletin, and I've got these keys, and I so wish that everybody viewed me the way that I viewed me, because it was pretty good. Till I realized that it just literally crumbled. Do you know why it's not a hard story for me to tell you today? The reason it's not hard to tell you that story, because you more than likely did the same thing. I had a great time, hour and a half coffee with some new folks in our church. I won't tell you who they are, I didn't get permission, but he was, like my cousin, a Green Beret. And I'm like, why don't Green Berets walk around with t-shirts saying, "Hi, I'm Chuck, I'm a Green Beret"? And he goes, they're older. They're done with that. They're on a mission. They're on someone else's mission. They're not on a mission to prop themselves up. And you look at brand new cops coming out of the force, and they just are RoboCops, you know. My one buddy, he goes to work sometimes, he's a cop, and sometimes he forgets his gun. And I'm like, dude, how do you forget your gun? He goes, I'm so over it. I should probably take it to work. I'm like, yeah. Whether you're in the Army, whether you're a cop, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a new principal, whether you're a new business owner, which that glamour lasts, what, about 10 minutes? How many small business owners? Is it glamorous? Yeah, I understand. And we temporarily shift our dependence from our parents to things, to a title, a hat, a t-shirt, a name, owning a gun. And you get a little older and you realize those things just don't mean anything. But you know who does? Jesus. Do you know, I'm not here to promote a church, a denomination, an organization. The only thing and the only person that can fill me, that gives me the ability in verse 2 to say, "Oh God, in you I trust," is Jesus. and that building's going to be great, and we're going to have a palm croft on the side of it, and it's going to be gorgeous. And you walk in, and you've been in there, you've seen the fountain, and you're like, this is awesome. Those things that's great. But I want it to be the biggest tool in our tool belt to tell people that Jesus is worth depending on, no matter what's going on in your life. Number 3, life is moving from one decision to another, each getting bigger and more important. And only God knows you fully and the future fully. And I get that from verse 3. It says this, indeed, none who wait for you shall be put to shame, and they shall be ashamed who are wantonly treacherous. Make me to know your ways, O Lord, and teach me, here it is, teach me your paths. The direction of their lives is not near as important as the process to learn it from God. I have people come into my office and go, I don't know what to do. I've got this dilemma, and I've got this, I don't know whether I should do this, and I don't know whether I should do this. And I think to myself, which is not what they want to hear, I think the process to seek God in what to do is far more valuable than the answer itself. And David has a relationship with God that he's searching his heart. His dependency is on him. And third, there's these decisions that need to be made. And David says, just show me the path and I will take it. And I love the fact that I worship a God that doesn't cross his arms in heaven, and he doesn't stoically wait for me to make the wrong decision. I think he's waiting for me to talk to him and to be in dialogue and to say, I need you to guide this, because there's other people and there's other things and there is money and there's lots of things at stake. And I need you, according to the text, to teach me your paths. What do you have for me? Do you realize that there's no safer place to be than, Lord, teach me your paths? I've never asked this question, and I'm going to probably regret it, but how many of you have made a decision and you knew at the time it was wrong, and it wasn't long after you realized that was not only wrong, but it could have bordered on stupid? Let me see your hands. Man, that's what I love about this church. I love your honesty. I've never done that, and so I wanted to see who else. And every time there's a blockade to a certain direction, we intentionally know that God said no. Here's my advice. It's advice that I've given myself, and I take it most of the time, not all the time. Let Jesus be your hero and direct your ways. Number 4, verse 5, lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all day long. Remember your mercy, O Lord, and your steadfast love, for they have been from old. Number 4, you're not alone, ever. And as a parent, how many times have I've done baby dedications or blessings, call them what you want, presentations, and I love it because I love babies, and I love doing it. I love being a part of someone's life in that regard and blessing little ones. And I know that especially for the first, that moms just think, no one can love you more. No one can love you unconditionally like I do. And there will be a day that your love fails. And your child, just like you have needed someone that provided divine, unconditional love that only comes from the person of Jesus. How can you provide that if you've never experienced that? That's a fair question, isn't it? It'd be like saying, I've been telling my kid to save their money and save and buy an older car, a cheaper car, cash, the first one, and don't get a debt, don't go in debt, and do it the right way. And meanwhile, you yourself are in a $50,000 car and you're paying $1,400 a month. How can you do that and tell your kiddo at 18 to do something different? Does that work? It's like saying you shouldn't smoke. That doesn't make sense, right? And I think about the things that I've told my kids, and I've been guilty of it. And they may not be drastic like a $50,000 car or smoking, but there have been things in my life. So if I want my kids to understand the joy and the freedom and the security of having a relationship with Jesus that directs my paths, whose love never fails, who never leaves me alone, I first have to enjoy that kind of relationship. My time is up. Let me give you one more. Number 5. You will blow it, and God will never turn his back on you or on your kiddos. Verse 7, remember not the sins of my youth or my transgressions. According to the steadfast love, remember me. Here it is, for the sake of your goodness. It's for the sake of your goodness. Here's the toughest question I'll ask. Have you ever woken up at the middle of the night or at that quiet moment, and whether it's the devil or whether it's just your heart or whether your memory goes back to something that you regret deeply and that you so wish that you could take back and relive that hour or that day? And you find yourself paralyzed because however it's happening, and I don't know if your theology allows for an influence of the devil on you. There's room in mine. But however it works, and there is a transgression in your life that you would pay $1 million if you had it to take it back and to relive that day, but you can't. Me too. And Jesus says this, those transgressions, even the pain that you caused, I forgive you. And now it might require going back and getting things right with people, or maybe you've done that and you still live with it. And he says to you, that was then. Today, they mean nothing. I have forgotten. That's the relationship, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, that we need to be instilling in our kiddos. Not, it's okay, it's not a big deal. No, it was a big deal. It wasn't okay. But Jesus delivered you. You ever experienced that? And I have. I need it. And there's freedom in it.